We're right now at Hidden City Cafe, which actually the film Monsters, Inc. was initially named Hidden City. And was basically the Pixar concert.
And it had a cameo in the film.
It does, yes. So it's about 3 blocks over to where Pixar used to be. I've gotten, I think, probably more questions than anything about the DVD release does the monkey work at Pixar? Because we had this monkey.
Well, the first thing we said, it's not a monkey. It's a chimp.
Well, then we talked about it. We thought it would be hilarious. That it's just inexplicably, we'd cut to a chimp.
Just there.
Somewhere.
A chimp there.
Yeah.
We would never acknowledge the chimp. The chimp wouldn't be a part of this. What we were talking about, it would just
wouldn't always be there. It'd be sometimes, but not other times.
Well, and a lot of people want to come to work at Pixar. We were with new hires that said, the reason why I want to work at Pixar is you guys have a chimp.
I had to pitch a sequence with the chimp there, and I'm so, hey, Sully, what are we doing? And I look over, and no one's holding the chimp. The chimp is going up and knocking its knuckles into the wall and knocking boards over. And I'm like, shit, I keep going for the camera, so I kept pitching.
There are a lot of pictures of Lee looking so happy.
That was one of the best days of my life, I have to say. My earliest memories way back when were you going off to develop a movie. And it was really weird at the time because everything we had done between Toy Story and Bug's Life, we were doing as a team. Mm-hmm. And you were the first person to kind of break away from that group.
I was jealous because you guys would sit at this long table and you'd put newsprint down, like 10 feet of newsprint, and you'd sit with crayons and pens and pencils and just let your minds wander and just sit around and laugh and have fun,
Every day we'd start by spreading it out and start drawing. Because initially the concept was, Pete, you go off and figure something out. I had no real clue of what I was doing. So we just thought of a lot of stuff. Trash Planet, which eventually became WALL-E, was one of them, and one or two other ones, but Monsters was the one that sort of landed.
The artwork over there was so cool. I just remember going over there and seeing, it would kind of think coalesce into Boo then on a bed, and it was brilliant colors, and she had Rasta hair kind of. Tons of cool artwork over there. And I remember thinking, that is one of the most imaginative things we've ever done. And the story was ripe with possibility.
Yeah, it was a different world.
Yeah.
The world that we were going to.
It was cool.
It was really cool.
It was a big deal because we had made Toy Story. It was this huge film. And then you were going to be the first person, not John Lasseter, to direct one of the movies.
For me, becoming a director is probably the most taxing thing physically and emotionally that I've done in my life, because it's a long race. It's like 5 years of uncertainty. Most of the notes we got were like, this is wrong, and I still don't understand your main character. And so I was sort of living in that world of like, the whole thing is going to fall apart at any moment. That's what it felt like. If you really care about it, it's hard not to take it personally and feel like the measure of the film is a measure of you as a person, which is of course false, but it's kind of the way you feel about it.
People somehow think that we just like spit out a script and then make a movie.
Yeah.
And,
this one was
crazy.
Explored.
And why don't we do that?
And I remember that you guys were doing a teaser with Sully and Mike to get those characters out there.
There's nobody here. Huh? There's no kid. There's supposed to be a kid. There's no kid this game. I'm panicking because there's a total lack of kids here.
Let's just check the schedule.
It's very embarrassing.
And you guys asked me to come on and cut that.
Which was a great thing for us just because it helped in the story department. It helped define those characters.
But we had John Goodman and Billy Crystal.
Right.
So that was the thing. It's like we really made that teaser sing. And it came out really good.
It did, yeah.
And as is wont with me, as has happened in several films, I started to get so enmeshed in the story and the characters and working with you that it was hard for me to leave. So it wasn't long after that, John asked me to come on to the movie and co-direct with you.
What's your favorite scene that you worked on?
Very early on when I first came on, we were kind of reworking the whole initial reveal of the scare floor and how the scare floor worked. And I had this idea. I pulled a piece of jazz off a big band CD that I had, and I cut this whole sequence of all the monsters coming in and out of their doors. And suddenly there was this whole cohesive feeling of the mechanics of everything.
And yet, when you really break it down, it's just all kind of exposition. Like, here's basically, again, all right, audience, here's why we collect Scream and how it all works, the mechanics of it. And that sequence made it just so fun to watch.
Yeah.
And it also made this world, which is out there, Monster World, just more accessible. It's just a factory that we're watching.
I don't think the scene is that much different now than it was at that point. It was like finding that voice of the film. But I seem to remember that being the beginnings of the kind of vibe we ended up going with score-wise.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm feeling good today, Mikey. Yeah.
Oh, attaboy, dog coming right up.
My initial concept was they scare kids for a living, and everybody would say, why? And I'd be like, because they do. That's just the conceit of the film. You have to buy it. But then, a lot of people, and rightly so, were poking at, well, what's the economics of that? How would they build a factory? How could they afford to set up the scare floor and the door vault and all that?
Mm-hmm.
And I remember Andrew Stanton came forward with the idea that Scream energy is really what Scream is what powers their world.
Our city is counting on you to collect those children's screams. Without Scream, we have no power.
The other thing Andrew figured out that he was really troubled with was figuring out kind of the logic of all the different time zones all over the planet.
Okay, people, Eastern Seaboard coming online.
That just because it's nighttime in this one part of the planet, it's daytime on the other side of the globe, and figuring out the idea of these big clocks and the different shifts
Brings
of
out all the
monsters.
shifts.
Yeah,
That was a great idea.
Just kind of scaring around the clock.
Our backstory was there were others, like Fearco and Scare Masters. They did the under the bed scares and the basement scares.
Right.
Monsters' big claim to fame was their patented through the closet door scare method.
That's right.
That Henry J. Waters the first invented. And so how many kids around the world have these closet doors? Therefore, there'd be this many scare floors to handle all the kids if they're scared maybe once every other week, or blah, 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 blah. And then that's what led to the vaults. Like, where do they keep all these doors?
Right. Well,
That was pretty early on.
I think that's
remember that.
my favorite sequence.
Is the door vault
Yeah,
sequence.
the door vault
Yeah.
sequence is so cool.
Well, as soon as we came up with that idea, kids, we stored the doors somewhere.
Right.
And we thought, okay, there must be a place. And just visualizing that, I was like, okay, that's going to be a cool
Yeah.
scene.
Yeah.
We boarded it, and it was fairly cool.
Looks like we caught the express, pal.
Do you see him?
Straight ahead.
I seem to remember that the door vault being the first time we really shot that like a live action sequence, where we just did a ton of coverage, and we kind of mapped out big swaths of blocking and what the characters were doing, and then we just covered it from lots of different angles and found all kinds of
So
dynamic cameras, and then
complicated
cut it
and
as if we were cutting live action. I remember being so proud of it when it was done. It's just the camera work, but we see it. We see it. We know how cool it's going to be.
Yeah.
What was your favorite sequence, Bob?
Yeti's Cave.
Yeah, that's right. Well, you bring up Yeti's Cave. There's always a sequence in every film that you just can't get right, and the one where Sully and Mike meet the Yeti.
Welcome to the Himalayas!
But you got the characters at their lowest point.
Right.
Like they've completely broken up. They're angry at each other, and then how do you remedy that? That's the scene that's all about mending that.
Yeah, he was like a
Yeah.
closet therapist.
I'm sensing a lot of anger in this cave. You guys gotta get over it. It's like my buddy Sasquatch always says. You gotta face it, embrace it, and erase it.
That big jerk.
Mike and Sully, we literally then had them break off stalactites and start fighting each other.
Oh, I can't wait to tell Bigfoot about this.
All you ever talked about was getting me back on the scare floor.
Literally, there were
There was-
25 versions of this
Yeah.
sequence. that
And we got to the
over and
point
over.
where we had approved it.
Well, we had to go.
And we
had to-
laid it out, and it was cut. We were a hair's breadth away from starting to animate the sequence, and we finally pulled the plug again and said, "This is just not right." One of my fond memories was that we were getting ready to do that whole sequence where Mike and Sully are fighting, and they roll down the hill.
Mhm.
And there was, in the drawings, we had snow flying and the wind buffeting them, and it was this crazy thing. And I remember the technical people called us into a meeting and said, okay, let's talk about what you really want here and what we can really give you.
Yeah.
And I remember you and I, we were talking about what we were hoping for, but we knew it was just going to be technically nearly
Because it's
impossible.
okay, we want you to build the entire side of a mountain with all the plants and snow.
and footprints and snow blowing and all this stuff.
And it's a one-off.
I remember that, and,
Yeah.
and the technical people were all really trying to tell us, well, we can't really do this, but this is what we can give you. And I remember they all went away, and it was a big lesson for me at Pixar that basically with the technical people, if you set the bar low and you say, well, yeah, I know it's really hard, I really don't think you can do this, that becomes a challenge for them.
Because we had signed off on, okay, he won't get snow stuck in his hair, It's just impossible at this point.
No
We're
wins.
lucky to have hair at all. So yeah, no win, and then in the end, of course.
But you watch it, it's about the believability. I mean, you believe the moment because it is just so real.
And it's the lowest low moment. It so drives it home. And I remember at the wrap party when that moment came on the screen and the whole audience just erupted in applause.
In honor of Yeti's Cave, every sequence